It's that time of the day. It's Talking Pints. I'm joined by Richard Town. Richard, welcome to the programme.
Thank you, and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's coming soon. Mm-hmm. Richard, you've done stints as a naval officer. You've worked in traffic and transport for many, many years and got a great deal of expertise on it. But fascinating to see that you were a member of the old GLC, the Greater London Council.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that Mrs. Thatcher absolutely hated. Did she hate the GLC, or was it Ken Livingstone and what she saw as the loony left?
A, she hated the GLC, and B, the Treasury hated the GLC for the simple reason that the Greater London Authority Act, as it was at the time, had its own revenue powers and could raise its own money in the House of Commons without it being opposed. And so there was a power struggle between the Treasury and the GLC, one which colleagues of mine, when I left, and I worked to take advantage of, and we got the GLC abolished, and with the London residuary body. Unfortunately, Tony Blair put back the Greater London Authority, which has been a pain in...
I gotta say, but I mean, didn't London, given the sheer size and importance of it, need some form of cooperation across the whole of the capital?
You would have thought so, but the electoral change between one election and the next meant that there was a difference always in political power and political party between the national government, the regional government of the GLC, or now the Greater London Authority, and the local councils. And so they were always at war with each other.
A bit like devolution then, really.
And they still are today. Well, the problem with there's no problem with devolution because we won, but others will disagree with you.
Are we better off or worse off with a Greater London Assembly, a mayor, than we were in the days of the GLC and, say, Ken Livingstone?
At the moment, we have a strange, awkward situation called proportional representation, which allows members of the Liberal Democrat Party, Green Party, and even in previous administrations, fascists, the National Party, to gain a voice, and they shouldn't have done so. Yes, they did. Two National Party members...
No, that's not true. Two UKIP members did.
Well,
two UKIP members did, which is a bit different to that. But, I mean, look, PR aside, you know, does Khan have more power than Livingstone did, or less?
Khan has more power simply because he's chairman of Transport for London, and he uses Transport for London as the arm of creating revenue and putting statutes on the book, which means the ultra-low emission zone, which was started in central London together with the T-charge zone, quite correctly, because it was filthy air in the centre of London, but then to have expanded it to the north and south circular roads was a revenue generator, and now he's expanding it again to the Greater London boundary. And this is absolutely daft. It bears no relation to any health related requirements whatsoever. Go on Imperial College's website. You can check what air pollution you're not getting by putting in your own postcode. It'll come up always at green.
Yeah, I mean, I live on the North Downs, right on the edge, you know, and someone said to me in the pub the other day, she said, to go and get my newspapers is going to cost me £12.50 a day. You know, just to go to the local shop is going to cost £12.50. And I'm very struck that the air quality, as you say, in outer London isn't a problem at all. In fact, it's no problem whatsoever. And the people this is really affecting, Richard, are those with older cars and without the money to buy new cars.
Exactly right.
Is there anything... Because I saw a letter in the Times in the last 2 days from some health professionals saying the extension of ULEZ was absolutely the right thing to do because London had so many respiratory problems. I don't buy that argument at all. I did see the former Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, who's got a constituency, again, right on the edge of the Greater London area, making some noise. Is there anything that can be done to stop this ULEZ extension?
Well, certainly, but it's going to take a judicial review, and that judicial review is going to cost upwards of £30,000. To be able to put forward. The Mayor has issued a consultation paper. He said that it's going to be a true consultation, and yet the consultation result did not turn in his favour. So he's quietly dropped it, and it doesn't refer to it anymore. We believe on the newsletter that I publish, we believe that it's a statutory consultation. So that's one particular aspect that we can put forward. Secondly, there are now 8 boroughs, 5 of whom I can name. There's 8 boroughs which are going to be pursuing a policy of non-cooperation. That's not allowing the ULEZ cameras to be erected on
Is that right?
On their boroughs.
Wow.
And on planning grounds, simply because they know full well that the difficulties in commuting, as you say, an older person wanting to get to a hospital. We've also been pursuing the possibility of older cars being converted to low-pressure gas, a clean, biodegradable, carbon zero fuel, and the Mayor won't look at that. He won't look at that because this is a money-making exercise to finance more mad schemes from Transport for London.
But, Richard, we've talked about the Mayor's powers, right? Who holds them? I mean, can the GLA hold him accountable or not really?
The GLA can hold him accountable. In fact, Grant Shapps, the last but one Transport Secretary, stopped with his grant settlement to pay Transport for London, stopped him using the money for the expansion of ULEZ to the Greater London boundary. And that was a condition of the grant payment. It's called the paragraph 22 in Grant Shapps' letter. Unfortunately, there are, at the moment, 3 Green members and 2 Liberal Democrats who will vote or is expected to vote with the Labour Party members on the GLA, and they want a 2/3 majority, and they can just vote the extra funds. £250 million for the extra cameras and back office equipment.
Well, I must say, this is very interesting. The fact there are boroughs now who are looking to become quite non-compliant on this is perhaps the beginning of a real campaign here. At least I hope it is. And by the way, if you're sitting at home thinking, this is just London, this doesn't affect me at all, well, I mean, you can knock me down with a feather, when I saw the proposals in Canterbury and the proposals for Oxford, and goodness knows where else this war against the car goes, but basically these are almost like lockdowns within cities, so you can't leave a certain part of a city. What's the big picture here? Is this all about climate change? Is this all the belief that the car is evil?
There is a belief now being perpetuated by the climate change lobby, who are very well financed and take great salaries from promoting the evils of climate change to the general population, local authorities, and the Mayor of London and the Greater London Assembly has swallowed these fibs hook, line and sinker. And because of that, they are being promoted in a way which is becoming now quite fascistic. 20-mile-an-hour speed limits.
Well, I'm just looking at as we speak, I'm just looking at the embankment, and there are very few cars on it, but they're crawling along because the embankment has a 20-mile-an-hour limit, speed cameras all the way down. And I don't mind a 20-mile-an-hour limit outside of school for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. But, I mean, all this madness does actually is slow things down and create even more pollution, surely.
That's correct. Absolutely right. It's a revenue-generating exercise. This and low-traffic neighbourhood schemes,
Yeah.
they're now producing play streets. They are now producing hospital streets where the filth of the motorist exhaust is not allowed to pollute a hospital air. And it's backed up by most fatuous claims, such as, if we do not have ULEZ to the Greater London boundary, 4,000 lives will be prematurely lost. Total nonsense, absolute nonsense.
And ULEZ actually is coming to the whole country. That's the point I'm making. Manchester are looking at similar proposals. On a happier note, Richard Town, you're a member, a supporter of the Vulcan Trust. Now, I, you know, as a kid, remember air shows and seeing the Vulcan bomber, and I turned up with optimism at Goodwood a few years ago, being told that the Vulcan would fly, and it didn't. What's the situation with the Vulcan bomber right now?
Well, I support XM655, which was one of the squadrons which went down to the Falklands, and one of the squadron's bombs out of the number that were dropped took out the runway at Port Stanley Airport.
Yeah.
Having done so, that denied the logistic support that General Galtieri needed in order to continue his invasion of the Falklands. They ran out of supplies and we ran over them, and the white flag was run up over Port Stanley. Now, XM655 is in engine running worthiness condition. It runs twice a year at Wellsfield Airport. It's just south of Coventry, and it is ready to fly. And
Is it?
It will be ready to fly. Now, unfortunately, the Civil Aviation Authority won't allow it because of the accident that happened at Shoreham Airport with a Hawker Hunter that came down 5 years ago, and they've tightened up the rules. However, if the enthusiasts are allowed their way, we would like to do a goodwill visit to Kiev and perhaps show off the 1962 nuclear power that we had then in the Cold War, which taught the Russians a thing or two and kept them away from our shores.
Well, whether Kiev's the right decision or not, one thing for certain, it's an extraordinary aircraft. And that mission, flying from Ascension Island to the Falklands to bomb with, I think, 4 refuelings on the way there and back, was one of the most amazing feats in the whole of RAF history. It's kind of been forgotten a bit, hasn't it?
I'm afraid they have. There are several Falklands memorial services taken around the year, and we should remember that the price of freedom that we now enjoy, me sitting here to you, talking to you, is eternal vigilance.